Tonight, when you scroll your phone for the fourth time and still have no one to text back, you'll probably just call it being bad at people. But for almost all of human history, that feeling had nothing to do with being awkward or unlovable. It was an alarm system as serious as hunger or thirst. For ancient humans, loneliness wasn't a mood. It was a survival siren that meant one thing: find your tribe or die. What if that same ancient alarm is the reason today's loneliness hurts so much more than it logically should? So what did ancient humans actually do when that alarm went off? How did people in tiny bands with no dating apps, no cities, and no privacy survive loneliness without going insane? In the next few minutes, we'll see why your brain treats loneliness like a life or death emergency, how hunter-gatherers quietly prevented it, and why modern life is the perfect machine for keeping you feeling alone, even when you're surrounded by people. By the end, you might stop calling loneliness a personal failing and start seeing it as a 300,000-year-old survival program trapped in a world it was never built for. Picture a single human standing at the edge of a campfire's light. Behind them, 20 sleeping bodies breathe in sync. In front of them, just darkness, rustling grass, and eyes that may or may not be watching. For early hunter-gatherers, being separated from that circle was not social discomfort. It meant fewer ears listening for danger, fewer hands to fight, fewer people who cared if you woke up in the morning. In that world, even an hour of real isolation could be a death sentence. So evolution did something extreme to make sure you avoided it. Modern researchers describe loneliness as perceived social isolation, not just being alone, but feeling that no one has your back. When they scan lonely brains, they see some of the same circuits that light up for physical pain. Evolution reused an existing alarm to warn us when we drift too far from the group. Your brain treats "no one cares about me" with the urgency of "my hand is on a hot stove." That's how seriously your ancestors needed other people. So if loneliness is that powerful, how did ancient humans stop it from spiraling out of control? First, they made it physically hard to stay alone for very long. Most hunter-gatherer bands were only 20 to 50 people, but they did almost everything together. Hunting, foraging, childcare, sleeping, rituals, gossip. You woke up to voices. You walked with others. You ate with others. You fell asleep within arm's reach of at least one person you trusted. Even if you felt ignored by one person, there were a dozen others within a few steps. But closeness alone isn't enough. Modern cities are crowded and people are still lonely. So what was different? In most foraging societies, people solved loneliness with roles, not with personalities. Maybe you were the one who told stories so vivid that kids begged to hear them again. Maybe you were good with snares, or knew which plant stopped a fever. Maybe you were simply the person who always noticed when someone was struggling. You didn't need 10,000 followers. You needed one small circle where your actions obviously mattered. Your identity wasn't interesting enough or cool enough. It was, "we'd be worse off tomorrow if you vanished." Compare that to a world where you can be in a crowd of 1,000,000 people and still feel like no one would notice if you disappeared. Evolutionary psychiatrists call this an evolutionary mismatch. Our minds evolved for small, tight tribes, but we now live in massive, anonymous societies with weak daily bonds. Instead of a few faces we see every day, we scroll past thousands we'll never meet. Our brain quietly concludes, "I must not belong to any real group." Studies suggest that mismatches in social support and community play a role in modern mood disorders, from depression to anxiety. Even when our basic needs are met, your loneliness isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that your environment no longer looks like the one your brain expects. And modern technology is quietly pouring gasoline on that fire. For most of history, you had maybe 150 people to compare yourself to. Today, your phone drops you into an endless stadium of strangers, all carefully showing their happiest moments and tightest friend groups. Your ancient alarm system scans those images and concludes, "everyone else is safely inside a tribe. I'm the only one outside the circle." Social media turns a signal meant to nudge you closer to 20 people into one that screams at you in front of 8 billion. But the worst part isn't the scroll. It's what lonely brains do once they think they're outside the tribe. When people feel chronically lonely, their brains start to treat the world as if it's hostile. They pay more attention to social threats. They remember slights more vividly. They interpret neutral faces as negative. It's like standing at the edge of that ancient fire, convinced everyone inside is whispering about you, so you step even farther into the dark. Over time, that feedback loop is linked to higher risks of depression, anxiety, even earlier mortality. So how did ancient humans keep that loop from starting in the first place? They didn't have therapists or mental health awareness weeks. What they had were constant micro-rituals of return. If you were gone too long, someone noticed. You were part of a hunting team, a childcare cluster, a fire circle. Disputes were handled face-to-face because there was no block or unfollow. You still had to share food that night. Many groups had explicit reconciliation rituals, shared meals, storytelling sessions, dances, and ceremonies where everyone's bodies moved in sync, reminding your nervous system you are still inside the circle. Which raises an uncomfortable question. What if your loneliness isn't asking you for more followers at all? What if the reason you can't scroll your way out of loneliness isn't weakness? What if your body is just doing what it's done for hundreds of thousands of years, screaming at you to find a real tribe, while you keep feeding it pictures of strangers? Maybe the problem isn't that you're too sensitive. Maybe it's that you're the only one in your apartment trying to satisfy a fire circle brain with a glowing rectangle. So the next time the alarm goes off, what would it look like to answer it the way your ancestors did? Tonight, when you scroll your phone and feel that familiar ache, try something ancient. Text one person you already know and ask them a real question. Step outside and share a meal instead of a meme. For your ancestors, surviving loneliness meant stepping back toward the light, toward the smoke, toward the sound of other people breathing in the dark. Your brain is still looking for that circle. It was never built to stand alone at the edge of 8 billion faces and wonder why it hurts. Maybe the most forbidden secret of human history is that you were never meant to do this alone.